The sky was dark, covered with thick gray clouds. Cold rain poured down on the dusty refugee camp at the edge of Sector 19. The ground had turned to mud. Guards stood at the tall metal gate, wearing armor and holding rifles. Behind them were tense, flickering lights and frightened whispers. Then, out of the mist, she appeared. An alien woman stepped forward, carrying 2 small children in her arms. Her clothes were torn and wet. Her long hair stuck to her cheeks. She was thin, exhausted and shaking from the cold. But her eyes, they were strong, full of something more powerful than fear. A human soldier named Davis stood at the gate. He was tall, young, and alert. When he saw her, he raised his hand. "Halt!" he shouted. "This is a restricted camp. Show your ID chip." She didn't have one. She just walked closer and fell to her knees before him. The children clung to her sides, crying softly. She looked up, rain dripping from her chin. "My name is Val Rin," she said in a soft voice. "They told me I'm worthless without a male. But my children need you, human. Please, just shelter." Davis hesitated. This wasn't part of the protocol. Refugees needed registration, background scans, health checks. He looked at the other guards. They frowned, shaking their heads. "Send her away," one whispered. But Davis kept looking at her. There was something in her face, a deep pain, but also pride. She didn't beg for herself. She begged for her children. He stepped forward and tapped his communicator. "Command, I have a widow at the gate. Species ID, Zareen. 2 children. No mail, no papers. Requesting emergency shelter access." Static. Crackled. Then a voice replied, "Negative. Only verified citizens allowed. She's not our problem." Davis cursed under his breath. He looked at Valrin again. "Why come here?" he asked quietly. "Humans aren't always welcome by your kind." She nodded. "I had nowhere else to go. My own people threw me out. Said a female without a bonded male was a burden. My mate died in the war. Since then, no food, no help. I walked for days. Please." Davis looked around. Other refugees were watching now. No one moved. No one offered help. The rain kept falling. Finally, Davis opened the gate just enough to step out. He knelt beside her and wrapped his warm coat around the children. "Come with me," he said. A gasp came from the other guards. "You'll get court-martialed, Davis." "Then let them," he snapped back. "She's got 2 kids. I'm not letting them die out here." Valrin's lips trembled. "You risk much for strangers." Davis helped her stand. "They're not strangers anymore." He led them through the gate. Inside the camp, people stared, some muttered. "Another useless mouth to feed," someone said. Davis ignored them. He brought them to a small empty shelter on the edge of the camp. It had broken walls, no lights, and a wet mattress, but it was better than the mud outside. Valrin placed the children down carefully. They looked around. The space, eyes wide. One of them, a tiny girl with silver eyes, smiled weakly. "Is this home now?" Davis crouched beside her. "It's not much, kid, but it's safe." He looked up at Valrin. "I'll get you food, medical help too. Just stay quiet. Don't draw attention." She nodded gratefully. "You are strange human, but kind." He gave a small smile. "That's what makes us dangerous." That night, Davis snuck food from the mess hall. Warm soup, bread, water. He gave it all to Valrin and her kids. She tried to eat slowly, with manners, but hunger betrayed her. Her hands shook. The children devoured their meal, giggling for the first time in days. Davis watched quietly from the doorway. Something inside him shifted. He had seen war, he had seen aliens destroy cities, but this wasn't war. This was just a mother trying to keep her family alive. Later, as the storm died down, Valrin stepped out to speak with him. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Davis shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe because I have a sister back home. Maybe because I'm tired of rules that don't make sense. Or maybe because I believe your children deserve better." She smiled gently. It was the first time she had smiled in weeks. "Then may the stars bless you, Davis of Earth." And with that, the night grew silent. But unknown to them both, this small act of kindness would change more than just one life. It would shake the entire sector. The small shelter didn't feel like a home. It felt like a box, cold, quiet, and surrounded by angry eyes. Valrin sat in the corner holding her youngest child while the other one curled beside her on the torn mattress. The wind outside howled like a lost animal. Inside, the silence was heavier than the walls. She was safe, but not welcome. The camp had seen her come in with a human soldier. That alone made her different. That alone made her a problem. Outside, whispers followed her name. The widow with no rank. The outcast with a human protector. She's just using him. She should have stayed outside. Valrin heard it all through the thin walls. But she didn't respond. She was used to being judged. She had learned long ago that silence was her only weapon. That night, her children cried in their sleep. One had a fever. The other had bad dreams about fire and monsters. Valrin stayed awake, wiping sweat from her son's brow and humming an old lullaby from her lost world. The next morning, someone kicked the door. She rushed to the entrance, afraid. A bag of stale rations dropped on the floor and a voice snapped, "That's all you get this week, you're not even registered." Then footsteps walked away. She picked up the bag. Inside were dry crumbs and a cracked water pouch. Not enough. Not even for one day. But she didn't complain. She simply turned back and broke the food in half for her children. Just then, the door opened quietly. It was Davis. He held a steaming container of soup, a blanket, and a look of quiet worry. "I brought something," he said. Valrin stared at the food and blanket like it was treasure. "You came back." He stepped in and placed the items down gently. "They said you were given spoiled rations. That's not right." She lowered her head. "They think I don't deserve more." He looked around. "Who said that?" "All of them." Davis looked at the children. The girl smiled at him again, the way she had on the first day. But now her smile was weaker. "I brought medicine, too," he added, placing a small bottle in her hand. "It's safe. Mix 1 drop in warm water." Valrin paused. "Why do you care so much?" Davis didn't answer right away. He looked down, then finally said, "Because when I was a child, no one came for us when we needed help. I remember what it feels like to be invisible." Her eyes softened. For a moment they sat in silence. The only sound was the breathing of her children. Then Davis stood. "I'll come by again tomorrow. Don't open the door to anyone else, not unless you trust them." Valrin nodded slowly. "Thank you, human. I don't know what I can give you in return." "You've already given me something," he replied. "Hope." That evening, Valrin cleaned the small room. She boiled the soup and made sure her children ate every drop. The little girl hugged the blanket to her chest, smiling as she fell asleep. For the first time in weeks, Valrin felt the heavy weight in her chest grow lighter. But not everyone in the camp was happy. In a nearby tent, 2 alien males spoke in low voices. "That widow is trouble. She walks with a human. That makes her dangerous. She's changing the order. If others follow her example." They nodded grimly. One of them pulled out a comm device. "Send a message. The elders must know she survived." It started with silence. Too quiet. The kind of silence that felt like the whole sky was holding its breath. Davis had just finished his night patrol when the alarm sensors blinked red. No sound. Just flashing. A glitch, maybe. Or something worse. He stepped outside his bunk and looked toward the northern fence. Nothing but darkness. Then, a scream. Not one. Many. And then, Explosions. Flames shot into the night sky. Bright red and yellow lit up the refugee camp like a terrible sunrise. Raiders, savage ones. Alien scavengers who hunted weak camps for food, tech, and prisoners. Davis ran. Sector C, under attack, he yelled into his comm. He didn't care about orders. He didn't wait for backup. He only thought of one thing, Val Ryn, and her children. At the far edge of the camp, her shelter was already burning. Smoke and fire poured from the roof. People ran past it screaming. Some fell. Some didn't get back up. Davis pushed through the chaos. His helmet visor scanned for life. 2 small heartbeats. 1 weak adult. There, in the ruins. He dropped to his knees and pulled open what was left of the shelter's wall. Inside, Val Ryn had wrapped her arms around her kids, hiding them beneath a flipped table. She was coughing, her skin burned, but her body never moved from their shield. Val Ryn, Davis shouted. Her eyes opened slowly. You came back? He didn't answer. He grabbed her daughter first, then the boy. He passed them out to a medic behind him. Then he reached for Val Ryn, who struggled to rise. I can walk, she said, even though she could barely breathe. You've already done enough, Davis replied, pulling her into his arms. Behind them, part of the roof collapsed. They escaped, seconds before the flames consumed the whole shelter. Later, in the emergency tent, Val Ryn's children were wrapped in silver blankets. Medics gave them oxygen and water. Val Ryn sat nearby, her arm bandaged, watching them with tired but proud eyes. Davis stood by the door, breathing hard, still in armor. You saved them, she whispered. You saved them first, he said. She looked up. I had nothing left, but I had them. So I gave all of me. There was silence between them. Then Davis leaned closer and said something she never expected to hear from a human. Your people were wrong. You're not worthless without a male. You're stronger than most soldiers I know. Val Ryn blinked fast, holding back tears. But across the camp, others were watching. Not everyone liked what they saw. An alien commander, one of the camp's senior refugees, whispered to another. This widow is starting to change things. That human, he needs to be stopped. Back inside the tent, the little girl reached for Davis's hand. Will you stay? She asked softly. He looked at her, then at Val Ryn. Yes, he said. I'm not going anywhere. She stood outside the medical tent at sunrise, her bandages still fresh. The night smoke still hung in the air, and ash floated down like snow. But Val Ryn was silent, her eyes fixed on the burning remains of what used to be her shelter. Davis watched, her from a few steps away. He hadn't spoken yet. He didn't know how. Then finally Val Ryn spoke. My people used to bow when I walked past, she said quietly. Davis blinked. What? She turned her head slightly. I was bonded to a great warrior. He was strong, respected. I was his mate, his queen. She smiled, but it was bitter. When he died, the bow stopped, and the doors closed. Davis stepped closer, listening carefully. I had a home made of crystal and light, she continued. But the day he died, they told me I had no right to it anymore. My worth was gone, because he was gone. His name carried honor. Without him, I was just excess. Davis felt anger rise in his chest. That's messed up. It is how my world works, she replied. Widows without a bonded male are seen as cursed. Bad luck. They stripped my rank, my home, even the food from my table. Your kids? He asked. They were young. Too young to remember the palace. I fled with them the night our house guard stopped protecting us. She looked down at her hands. They once held power. Now they just hold my children close. There was a long pause between them. Davis finally said, You don't need a palace to be a queen. You already are one. Val Ryn laughed softly. It wasn't the sound of joy. It was the sound of disbelief. But also, gratitude. You speak like a poet, human. No, he said. Just someone who's tired of watching good people suffer. That afternoon, Davis did something unusual. He brought her to the weapons tent. Come, he said. If they won't protect you, you'll learn to protect yourself. Valrin hesitated. Me? Fight? Yes, Davis said. Because you already know how to survive. Fighting is just the next step. He gave her a training rod, light, firm, and safe for beginners. She held it awkwardly. He smiled. Don't worry, most soldiers look clumsy the first day too. Over the next hour, he taught her basic moves, how to stand, how to block, how to strike. Her movements were stiff at first, but something in her changed as the minutes passed. She moved with growing strength. Her posture straightened, her eyes focused. She's a fast learner, one of the other human soldiers said, watching from afar. She's been learning to survive her whole life, Davis replied. By sunset, Valrin was breathing hard, sweat on her brow, but her grip was firm. She turned to Davis. I feel different. You should, he said. You're not just a mother, you're a warrior now. But far away, deep in the refugee command sector, an encrypted message was sent. The widow lives. She trains with humans. She is becoming dangerous. The reply came fast. Eliminate her quietly, before others follow her example. It started with a drawing, crayons on a piece of old supply paper, a stick figure family, 2 small children holding hands with a tall human in armor and an alien woman in a long robe. The sun was smiling in the corner, and across the top, in shaky letters, the little girl had written, My family. Davis found it on his bunk one morning, tucked beside a folded blanket. He stared at it for a long time. His name was written on the human figure's chest. He didn't know what to say. Later that day, he visited Valrin's shelter. The children ran to him, excited. Did you see it? The boy asked. My sister made it. I did, Davis replied with a smile. It's beautiful. Valrin stepped out, drying her hands. They wanted to give it to you. They said you're part of us now. Davis looked at her carefully. Part of you? She paused, then said slowly, They started calling you something. What? She hesitated. They call you father. The word hit Davis like a weight. He had no family of his own, no children. No one had ever called him that before. He didn't know if he deserved it. I can correct them, Valrin said quickly, seeing the expression on his face. If it makes you uncomfortable, no. Davis interrupted, his voice quiet. Don't stop them. Valrin tilted her head. Are you sure? He looked at the children playing. I think I needed a reason to keep going. Maybe this is it. From that day, something changed between them. Davis spent more time with the family, teaching the children to play simple Earth games, telling bedtime stories, helping Valrin fix broken parts of the shelter. In return, the children drew more pictures, always including him. They held his hands when they walked. They sat beside him during meals. And every night, before bed, they whispered, Good night, Father. Valrin watched it all with quiet wonder. One evening, as the stars blinked across the alien sky, she sat beside Davis near a small fire. You've done more than save us, she said. You gave them something I never could. What's that? He asked. Hope. And a future that doesn't hurt. Davis looked down at his hands. I didn't plan for any of this. Neither did I, she said gently. There was silence between them, but it wasn't awkward. It was warm, like the quiet of a home at peace. But not everyone felt peace. In the shadows of the camp, 2 alien refugees watched them closely. Look at her, one muttered, acting like a human's mate. She's forgetting her place, said the other. She'll ruin the old order. We have our orders. Tonight we finish this. Their hands moved to hidden blades. That night, while Davis slept, the boy shook him awake. Father, someone's outside. I heard them. Davis grabbed his weapon silently and stepped out of the shelter. The camp was quiet. Too quiet. Then, movement. He turned fast and saw 2 figures near the edge of the shadows. He raised his weapon. "Step out! Now!" But they ran. Davis gave chase, heart pounding. When he returned, breathless and alert, Valrin stood by the door holding her children close. "They were after us," she whispered. "Weren't they?" Davis nodded. "And I won't let them try again." He stepped forward, placing one hand on her shoulder. "From now on, I'm not just guarding the camp. I'm guarding you." Valrin met his eyes, heart racing, and that night, for the first time since her world fell apart, she slept without fear. The council tent was filled with cold eyes and colder hearts. 3 alien elders sat in a half circle. Their robes were bright, but their faces were hard like stone. They spoke in hushed voices, sharp, full of judgment. "She was royalty once," one said. "Now she sleeps with humans." "She is a widow without a mate," another spat. "And she dares train with Earth soldiers? What does she think she is?" "She is becoming a symbol," the third one hissed. "And symbols are dangerous." Their final decision came fast. Valrin must be removed. Quietly but completely. That same day, Davis was called to the command tent. "We've had complaints," the officer said, folding his arms. "Your closeness with the alien widow. It's creating tension." "Tension?" Davis frowned. "You mean jealousy. We mean problems," the officer snapped. "She's not one of us, and you're turning her into something she was never meant to be." Davis leaned forward. "She's strong, brave. She defended her children. She fought raiders. She's done more for this camp than half the people here." "That doesn't change her status," the officer said coldly. "The elders are pressuring us. If you want to stay in this camp, you'll keep your distance." Davis left without saluting. Valrin noticed something different that night. People no longer just whispered behind her back. They stared. Some stepped aside when she walked. Others turned their faces. The food rations stopped again. The water lines grew longer when she approached. Even her children were ignored by the others. "Why are they being mean again?" the little girl asked. Valrin just held her tight. Later that evening, Davis visited, but this time, he looked tired, angry. He dropped a crate of supplies inside. "They're trying to push you out," he said. Valrin didn't look surprised. "They fear what they don't understand," she replied calmly. "I was never meant to fit inside. They're boxes." Davis clenched his fists. "You deserve better." "They want me gone," she said. "Why don't you?" He stepped closer. "Because the only place I felt like I matter is here. With you." Valrin's eyes welled with tears, but she didn't cry. Not yet. The next morning, Valrin was summoned to the council tent. She walked in, tall and silent, her children. Beside her, the elders didn't even look at the kids. "You have been warned," the lead elder said. "You are disrupting the order. You bring shame to your bloodline." "I have no bloodline," she answered. "You erased it when you left me to die." "Then leave now," the second elder demanded. "Before we decide what to do with you, ourselves." Valrin took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her voice was steady. "I was born into power. You took it. I was thrown into dirt. I survived it. You call me weak, yet I stand taller than all of you now." Gasps filled the room. She turned and walked out. Her children followed. And outside, waiting with arms crossed, was Davis. "You stood up to them?" "Yes," she said. "What now?" he asked. She looked toward the distant mountains. "Now, I choose my own path." He nodded. "Then I'm walking it with you." But as they walked away, a shadow moved inside the council tent. The elders didn't speak. They just gave a silent nod to the assassin hidden behind the curtain, and that assassin began preparing for nightfall. The stars above were quiet, but the air on the ground was full of danger. Davis couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. Inside the small shelter, Valrin slept with her children beside her. Their faces were peaceful. Davis stood just outside, his hand resting on the hilt of his rifle. Then, he heard it, a soft click, a step that didn't belong. He moved fast. From the shadows, a blade flew, silent, sharp, aimed for Valrin's throat. But Davis stepped in front. The blade hit his arm, slicing deep. He didn't cry out. He fired his weapon, and the assassin fell. Blood dripped down Davis's arm. Valrin woke up to the smell of smoke and iron. Her children screamed. She grabbed them close. "Davis!" she shouted. He was on one knee, holding his wound, breathing hard, but alive. Valrin rushed to him. "Why? Why would you do that?" He looked at her with pain in his eyes, but also something more. "Because you're my family now," he said. The next day, the camp was different. People whispered again, but not with hate, with shock. The assassin failed. The humans saved her. They were wrong about her. Even the alien elders stayed silent. Their plan had failed. Their grip was loosening. Valrin stood before the refugee council once more, but not as a widow, not as a beggar. She stood beside Davis, beside her children, tall, proud. "I came to this place with nothing but my children and my grief," she said. "You told me I had no value, that I was empty without a male, but the human you feared gave me my worth back." She looked around the crowd. "You call it weakness. I call it love. And that's stronger than any title you ever gave me." Later, that week, Davis was offered a transfer to a safer zone, a chance to leave, but he refused. He chose to stay with them. He built a new home at the edge of the human colony border, where refugees and soldiers alike came to visit. Valrin helped teach young alien widows survival skills and language classes. Davis trained anyone, human or alien, who wanted to learn defense. And the children? They laughed again. They called him father louder than ever before. One quiet evening under the stars, Davis handed Valrin something wrapped in cloth. She opened it slowly. Inside was a small handmade ring, woven with earth metal and her native crystal. "Don't have your traditions," he said, "but I have this." Valrin looked at the ring, then at him. Tears filled her eyes. "I was thrown away because I had no bond, but you gave me one stronger than I ever dreamed." He took her hand and placed the ring on her finger. "You were never worthless," he said softly. "You were just waiting for someone who could see your worth." She smiled, and for the first time in a long time her heart felt whole. They were no longer just survivors. They were a family. And their story, once buried in the dust, became a beacon for others lost in the dark.